What happens when a wife discovers the truth about her marriage in the most unexpected way? It started with a simple dinner, a quiet evening, and a smile from Daniel. But when I overheard a conversation between him and his mother, Eleanor, I realized everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. He was plotting against me, planning my removal as easily as making dinner plans. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Stay tuned to find out how Emily takes control and gets the revenge she deserves. Don't forget to subscribe for more twists and turns in this dramatic story. I remember the day I met Daniel like it was yesterday. I was sitting in this small dive cafe, nursing the cheapest coffee they had, trying to make sense of the chaos in my mind and the mess of plans I had. That's when he walked in. It wasn't like a movie scene, no dramatic lights or slow-motion shots, just the soft chime of the doorbell and the stale scent of coffee mixed with his aftershave. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the chair across from me, his smile dazzling enough to knock the wind out of anyone. "Looks free to me," I replied, keeping my cool, though my heart was racing. We started talking, and damn, it was like we were cut from the same cloth. We clicked instantly into all the same junk I loved, from binge-watching trashy shows to passionately arguing over the best pizza topping, pineapple. Obviously, fight me. Fast forward a bit, and we're dating, but not the casual kind of dating this felt real. It was like I had known him my whole life, and before long, we were talking about getting married. That's when the real drama began. His parents, oh boy. The first time I met them, it felt like walking into a lion's den in a meat dress. They had this unnerving smile while sizing me up, like they were deciding whether I was worthy of their time or not. "So, you're the girl Daniel can't stop talking about," his mom said, her tone dripping with something cold and calculating. "Guilty as charged," I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady, even though I could feel her gaze digging into me. And that's when they laid down the law. A prenup. Now, I'm not some gold digger, and I sure as hell don't need anyone's money, but that rubbed me the wrong way. "I'll sign your prenup," I told them, "but I've got one condition. If one of us cheats, the cheater pays up 100 grand. Daniel looked at me like I'd slapped him with a fish. "Babe, I'd never cheat on you," he said, eyes wide, serious as hell. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing before I caught him with his pants down. Literally. So it's this or nothing." He agreed, and his parents begrudgingly did too, though they looked like they'd swallowed lemons. We thought that was the end of it, but oh, we were wrong. One evening we were curled up together on the couch, a little tradition we'd started since moving in. It wasn't much a rickety old thing we'd promised to replace, but never did. Somehow it had become our spot. The TV was on, but we weren't really watching. We were too busy dreaming about a trip to Italy, one we knew we couldn't afford, but were dead set on making happen. "Daniel, think about it. Food, wine, art. We have to go," I said, my voice bubbling with excitement. Daniel laughed, pulling me closer. "Emily, babe, you had me at food, but let's be real. Our bank account's more camping in the backyard than romantic getaway to Venice." I nudged him playfully. "So we'll save, cut back on things we don't need, like your video games." He feigned horror. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my beloved coffee maker, but leave the games alone." We laughed, and that was us always dreaming big, but firmly grounded in the reality of our modest lives. We didn't care. We were happy. The happiness wasn't just in the big moments, though. It was in the little things, too, like how Daniel would make breakfast on Saturdays. He couldn't cook to save his life, but he had somehow mastered the art of scrambled eggs and toast, served with a side of his god-awful coffee. I loved those mornings more than anything. "Hey, I'm thinking scrambled eggs today. What do you think?" he'd ask, already heading to the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time," I'd call out, followed by, "And I'm making the coffee." One day, the topic we had been avoiding came up. We were doing dishes together, a mundane task that somehow felt special because we were doing it together. "Emily, we need to talk about, starting a family," Daniel said, breaking the comfortable silence. I paused, a plate in hand. "I know, it's scary, isn't it? What if we can't?" Daniel turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. "Then we'll deal with it together." "But we won't know until we try, right? I mean, how hard can it be?" I laughed, a mix of nerves and love. Famous last words, babe. But that's how it was with us. No matter what we were facing, we faced it together, even when his mom started dropping not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren every chance she got. Emily, darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies? You're not getting any younger, you know, she'd say, her voice sweet but the message anything but. I'd bite my tongue, smile, and say, "We're working on it, aren't we, Daniel?" And he'd jump in, "Yeah, Mom, lay off, will you? These things take time." But as the year went on, the pressure started to build. Not just from his mom, but from within. We wanted a family, but it wasn't happening as easily as we had hoped. Ever since Eleanor found her new hobby of making my life a living hell, our home turned into a battleground, and the main weapon was her sharp tongue. It wasn't just about the occasional jib anymore. It was an all-out war with daily assaults on my self-esteem and role as a wife. It all spiraled one Sunday lunch, a day that was supposed to be laid back and peaceful. Eleanor, with her uncanny timing, dropped by uninvited just as we were about to sit down. The air was tense the moment she walked in, her eyes scanning the room like she was about to conduct a military inspection. "Well, isn't this quaint?" she started, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she looked at the modest spread I'd prepared. "You really outdid yourself, Emily. I can see you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning." Her eyes briefly met mine, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. Trying to keep the peace, I forced a smile. "It's nothing fancy, Eleanor, just something simple and quick. Please, have a seat." As we sat down, the barrage began in earnest. "You know, Emily," Eleanor said, loading her voice with condescension, "I was talking to Mrs. Mildred the other day, and she mentioned how her grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Daniel going to give me some good news? It's not like you're getting any younger." I felt my cheeks burn, a mix of embarrassment and anger. I glanced at Daniel, hoping for some support, but he was suddenly very interested in his plate. "Mom, come on," Daniel finally muttered, but it was half-hearted and we all knew it. Eleanor plowed on, relentless. "And Daniel, dear, I don't mean to be cruel, but you're not a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Emily if she can't do her basic duties as a wife? A cleaning service and a cook would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That's when I couldn't hold back any longer. "Eleanor, I am trying my best here. It's not like I don't want to have kids, and as for the house and my cooking, well, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract." Eleanor scoffed. "Well, it's not a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Emily, which you are clearly not fulfilling." The room was heavy with tension, and I could feel the tears pricking at the back of my eyes. But what hurt the most wasn't Eleanor's words. It was Daniel's silence. He finally spoke up, but it wasn't to defend me. "Yeah, Mom has a point. Maybe we should consider getting some help around here. Would make things easier for you, too." "Easier for me?" His words felt like a betrayal. It was clear I was on my own in this. Over the next few days, Eleanor's visits became more frequent, and with each visit, her criticism grew sharper. She'd walk through the house with an air of superiority, her eyes scanning every inch, pointing out every speck of dust, every pillow out of place. "You call this clean?" she'd scoff. "My eyes must be deceiving me because this looks like a pigsty." And then came the comments about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? A wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Daniel is always so tired. He has to come home to this." I tried to fight back. "Eleanor, I don't dress for Daniel. I dress for myself, and he's always tired because he works hard, not because of what I wear." But it was like speaking to a wall. Eleanor had already made up her mind about me, and nothing I said would change that. The worst part was Daniel's silence. His lack of action was the biggest blow. Each night after his mother left, we fought. "Why won't you stand up for me, Daniel? She's walking all over us, and you're just letting her." "Emily, she's old, set in her ways. What do you want me to do, kick my own mom out?" "No," I snapped, "but I want you to be my husband. Stand by me, not her." It became clear that this wasn't just about Eleanor's disapproval. It was about us, about our marriage, and whether we were strong enough to stand together or let her criticisms tear us apart. As the days bled into weeks, I realized this wasn't just a phase. It was a full-on siege. If we didn't do something soon, there might not be anything left to save. Things between Daniel and I had become icy since Eleanor had ramped up her campaign of critique. But it wasn't just the home front that felt the strain. Daniel himself had started acting off, and it wasn't just a "he's stressed at work" kind of way. It was something else, something that made my stomach twist into knots. It began with the phone calls. Daniel had always been open about his phone. We didn't hide anything from each other. But soon he began stepping out of the room every time he got a call. The caller ID was always the same: Kevin, work. "Who's Kevin? Work?" I asked one evening, keeping my voice casual, but I could feel the tension rising. Daniel flinched, an obvious sign that he was on edge. "Oh, just a new guy at the office. Lots of questions, you know." But it didn't stop there. Daniel, who had never cared much for fashion, suddenly started paying attention to his appearance. Gone were the graphic tees and worn-out jeans. Now it was all crisp shirts, slacks, and cologne. He was wearing cologne now. Since when did he care about smelling like a department store? "What's with the new look, Daniel? Got a job interview or something?" I joked one morning, watching him comb his hair in a way I'd never seen before. He smirked, a little too quickly. "Just felt like changing things up. No harm in that, right?" Then the late nights started to become routine. "Another long one, babe?" I texted, trying not to sound too needy. "Sorry, Em. This project is killing me." "Won't be late, I promise," he'd reply. But the clock would tick well past midnight before I heard his keys in the door. I tried to shake the feeling that something was wrong, but it clung to me like a shadow. That's when I decided to hire a private detective. It felt like something out of a bad TV show, but I had to know. The evidence came in a plain brown envelope. The contents were as damning as they were heartbreaking. Photos of Daniel with another woman, moments of intimacy that left no room for doubt. But it was the recording that cut the deepest. Their conversations were filled with endearments and plans, and it was clear he was in love with her. And I had been living a lie. I sat there, the evidence spread out in front of me, a cold realization settling in. This was it. This was the proof that could anchor me in a stormy divorce should it come to that. Photos that caught moments stolen from our life together, and words that betrayed every "I love you" he had ever whispered in my ear. But I kept it all a secret, a painful burden I chose to carry alone. I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed a plan, a way to navigate the wreckage of our marriage with my dignity intact. The following days were a blur. Daniel continued his charade, and I played along, the perfect wife with a smile plastered on my face and a heart breaking silently. Our conversations became a dance around the truth, each word measured, every laugh forced. "Everything okay, Em? You've been quiet," Daniel would ask, his concern seemingly genuine. "Yeah, just tired, you know. Work's been crazy," I'd reply, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. It was just another mundane day, or so I thought, until I stumbled upon a conversation that would change everything. I was passing by the slightly ajar door to Daniel's office when their voices caught my attention. It was Daniel and his mother, Eleanor, and they weren't just chit-chatting. The tone was serious, heavy with intent. "I'm telling you, Mom, I can't do this anymore. It's not just about the kids. I've lost all feeling for Emily. It's like we're roommates, not husband and wife." Daniel's voice, strained and tired, floated through the gap. Eleanor's voice, ever so sharp, replied, "Well, of course you feel that way. She's not given you a child, and let's be honest, what else has she brought to this marriage? But let's not be hasty. My 70th birthday is coming up, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her now, would we?" The cynicism in her voice was like a knife twisting in my gut. They were plotting against me, using me until they deemed it convenient to throw me aside. "And after we get a nice, expensive gift, we can kick her to the curb, right?" Daniel said, his voice cold and calculating. "Exactly, dear. Just bide your time a little longer," Eleanor confirmed, her voice dripping with malice. I stood there, frozen, a storm of shock and fury churning inside me. They were planning my removal from this family as casually as picking out groceries. The hurt was deep, but it sparked something darker within me, a fierce thirst for revenge. They thought they could use me and toss me aside whenever it suited them? I'd show them I wasn't some pawn in their twisted little game. A few days later, during a family dinner that felt more like a charade than a meal, Eleanor casually brought up her upcoming birthday with that smug look I had come to despise. She leaned in, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness. "So, Emily, dear, what are you planning for my birthday? Something special, I hope." I met her gaze, my expression betraying nothing. "Actually, Eleanor, I was thinking of throwing you a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant, a night you won't forget." Her eyes flickered with greed, and she shared a quick, satisfied glance with Daniel. They thought they had me cornered, but little did they know I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Emily, that sounds so delightful." "Just close family, you know. Keep it intimate," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Of course, Eleanor, it'll be our pleasure," I replied, the words tasting like ash on my tongue. The weeks leading up to Eleanor's 70th birthday felt like a slow march to the inevitable. Every smug smile from her, every dismissive shrug from Daniel only fueled my determination. My plan was simple, yet bold, just like the movies. Host a lavish dinner under the guise of a loving gesture, and then drop the bombshell. But like any good plot, the devil was in the details. The night before the party, the air in the house was thick with tension. Daniel, blissfully unaware of the storm about to hit, lounged on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, his eyes glued to the screen. "Oh, you could say that," I replied, my tone masking the maelstrom inside me. The day of the party arrived, and the opulent dining room was slowly filled with guests, the air thick with anticipation. My heart raced not from nerves, but from the adrenaline of what was about to unfold. Eleanor, ever the queen bee, basked in the luxury of her surroundings. "Oh, Emily, you've outdone yourself. This place is exquisite," she exclaimed, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. As we all settled in, the evening proceeded with the kind of forced cheer that only family gatherings can bring. There were laughs, stories, pleasantries exchanged. Then, as the dessert plates were cleared, the waiter arrived with the final act, the bill. He leaned in discreetly, his voice low as he revealed the total $33,000. Without missing a beat, I handed over my card, the gesture unnoticed by most. And then, just when I thought the night couldn't get any more suffocating, Daniel, with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes, decided to drop his bombshell. "Emily, I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this. Tired of us. I want a divorce." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud, suffocating everything else. Before I could even process the full weight of his statement, Eleanor's voice cut through, sharp and unforgiving. "Well then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Emily. We're celebrating family tonight, and, well, you're no longer part of it." The room fell into a suffocating silence. Every eye was on me, waiting to see me break. But I didn't. With a calm I didn't feel, I stood, nodded, and walked out without a word. The cool night air hit me like a slap as I made my way home, the finality of everything that had happened crashing over me in waves. By the time I reached his apartment, a plan had formed. I packed my essentials, the numbness giving way to a cold resolve. This was it, the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped the last suitcase, my phone started buzzing, a relentless, insistent vibration that I initially ignored. Curiosity, however, got the better of me. Eleanor's voice screeched from the other end. "Emily, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now." The sweet, sweet irony. In my preparations for the inevitable, I had secured my exit strategy. I had blocked the shared account, knowing it would be the first thing Daniel would try to use against me. "Oh, Eleanor, that's unfortunate. But since I'm no longer part of the family, as you so eloquently put it, I'm afraid you'll have to sort this out yourself." Her outrage was palpable, even through the phone, but it was music to my ears. The chaos that unfolded was a fitting end to the farce my marriage had become. Reports came through the grapevine of the restaurant staff demanding payment, of Eleanor's escalating tantrums, and eventually the arrival of the police to calm the storm she had become. In the end, it was Daniel and his relatives who had to pull together the money to settle the bill. a poetic justice for the betrayal and humiliation they had subjected me to. The morning after the dinner disaster felt like waking up to the aftermath of a storm. I had my plan, my resolve, and a set of divorce papers in my hand. As I made my way back to what used to be our shared home for the last time, the moment I stepped through the door, the air crackled with tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. Daniel and Eleanor were there, looking like they'd been arguing. The sight of me seemed to unite them in hostility.
"You've got some nerve showing up here after last night,"
Daniel spat out, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. Eleanor, ever the viper, was quick to add her poison. "Ungrateful wretch! You've embarrassed us in front of the whole city! Do you know how humiliating it was to have the police calm me down? People were laughing, filming!" I met their fury with a calm I didn't feel. "Embarrassed? You think that's your biggest problem right now?" I tossed the divorce papers on the table, the photos of Daniel's infidelity on top. "You should be more concerned with this." "No." The color drained from Daniel's face as he picked up the photos, his mother hovering behind him, her eyes wide. Their outrage quickly shifted to shock, then panic as they realized just how much I had on them. "And let's not forget the prenup, shall we?" I continued, my voice calm but unwavering. "You cheat, you pay. $100,000 to be exact?" Eleanor's face twisted, her lips curling into a snarl. "You wouldn't dare! You can't do this to us!" I met her gaze, cold and resolute. "Oh, but I can. And I will." The finality in my voice hung in the air as Daniel, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in, switched tactics. "Em, please. Let's talk about this. We can fix it." I let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "Fix it? You think you can just undo everything with a few words?" "No, Daniel, it's done." Eleanor, always the manipulator, softened her tone, trying to twist the knife in a different direction. "Emily, darling, think about what you're doing. This will ruin us." "The ship has already sailed, Eleanor," I said, my voice unyielding.
"You should have thought about that before."
Their begging, their pleading, grew desperate, each word a futile attempt to salvage what they could. But my mind was made up. I was done being the victim, done with their lies and manipulations. In the end, Daniel had no choice but to borrow the money from his parents to pay me. As I left that house for the last time, check in hand, I felt the weight of years of deceit and guilt finally lift from my shoulders. With the payout from Daniel, I put a down payment on a small, cozy place of my own. It's funny, really, how much peace can be found within the walls of a place that's just yours. Every corner felt like a sanctuary, a world away from the chaos of the past. Life's quieter now, and I like it that way. I've got a job that keeps me occupied, friendly neighbors who nod and smile when I walk by, and a little garden that's all mine to care for. But every so often, the grapevine tosses a juicy tidbit my way about Daniel and Eleanor. Just the other day, I was grabbing coffee from the corner spot, the local hangout, when I ran into someone from the old neighborhood. After exchanging pleasantries, they leaned in, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Hey, have you heard the latest about your ex and his mom?" they asked, their eyes gleaming with the thrill of gossip. I raised an eyebrow, curiosity mixing with detachment. "Can't say that I have. Do tell." They grinned, clearly savoring the moment. "Well, word is, Eleanor's not too thrilled with Daniel's new girlfriend. They're at each other's throats, making your situation look like a walk in the park." The conversation moved on, but as I walked away, coffee in hand, I couldn't help but smile. There was a time when news like that would have sent me spiraling into a whirlwind of emotions. But now it was just another piece of someone else's drama. These days, my biggest concern is whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever stop looking like a newborn deer in yoga class. Life's simpler, quieter, and infinitely sweeter on this side of chaos. What do you do when you've been betrayed, manipulated, and discarded by the people you trusted most, your own family? When they thought they could play their games with you, using you until they no longer had any use for you? For years, Emily put up with Daniel's family, putting up with their subtle digs, their undermining comments, and their silent betrayal. She fought for her marriage, for her relationship, for a future together. But when Daniel and his mother plotted behind her back, planning her removal from their lives as if she was nothing more than an inconvenience, Emily's heart finally broke. In that moment, she made a choice that shocked everyone, including herself. She wasn't going to be their punching bag any longer. She wasn't going to play the victim. So, when the time came, she did what anyone in her shoes would do. She took control. She exposed their lies, and she made sure they felt the sting of their own manipulation. Now, Emily is free. No more lies, no more manipulative guilt trips, no more pretending. And as for Daniel and Eleanor, they got a taste of their own medicine, and it was sweet, sweet justice. So what do you think? Could you have done the same thing if you were in Emily's shoes? Would you have stood up for yourself like she did? Or would you have kept quiet, hoping things would get better? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
I sat in the stillness of my apartment the night before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My phone rang, slicing through the quiet. It was Richard, my fiancé. Hello? Richard, is everything okay? I asked, sensing something off in his voice. Elena, I can't marry you, Richard said, his voice devoid of the warmth I knew. A cold wave of shock washed over me. What do you mean? This isn't funny, Richard. It's not a joke, Elena. I'm already married, to someone else. His words were like a dagger to my heart. Married? But we're getting married tomorrow. How could you do this? I struggled to keep my voice steady. I just can't be with someone who overshadows me. You're a top executive, and I'm not. It's too much for me. His tone was emotionless. So this was about his ego. You knew about my job. For 2 years you said nothing, and now this? I need someone simpler. Someone who doesn't outdo me. The mix of hurt and disbelief inside me was boiling into anger. And you decide this now, the night before our wedding? Who is she, Richard? It doesn't matter. I've made my choice. You coward, I hissed, anger surging. You let me plan our life together, and now you're backing out like this. I'm sorry, Elena. It is what it is. You're not sorry. You're a coward. I'm glad I know your true colors before it's too late. There was a pause. You'll regret this, Elena. You need me. I don't need a man who doesn't respect me. Goodbye, Richard. I ended the call, my hand shaking with a mix of rage and shock. Sitting alone, the magnitude of the conversation hit me. The man I thought I knew was nothing but a lie. But amidst the hurt, I felt a surprising relief. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. My chance to rebuild my life without Richard's deceitful shadow. My heart hardened with determination. Richard had wounded me deeply, but I wouldn't let him get away with it. He would regret crossing me. I would make sure of that. I lay awake that night, the darkness of my bedroom mirroring the turmoil in my mind. How had I not seen Richard's true colors? Our relationship, once a source of joy, now felt like a well-crafted facade. The painful realization stung. I thought back to how it all started. My uncle, a well-respected businessman, had introduced me to Richard. He's a promising sales manager, he had said. You two might hit it off. I was reluctant, but I agreed to meet Richard out of respect for my uncle. Our first meeting was at a quiet cafe. Richard was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my career as a marketing executive. We clicked instantly. I thought I had found someone who understood and respected my ambitions. But as I lay there, replaying our conversations, the signs were clear. Richard's subtle digs at my achievements, his veiled comments about women in leadership, they were all red flags I had ignored. He was never proud of me. He was intimidated by me. I remembered the times he'd belittle my work. It's just marketing, Elena. It's not like you're saving lives, he'd scoff. His words, once brushed off as harmless jokes, now echoed in my mind as clear indicators of his resentment. It dawned on me that his recent behavior, the late nights, the sudden business trips, it wasn't just work. He was seeing someone else. The pieces fell into place, forming a picture of betrayal. I got out of bed, my mind racing with anger and hurt. Richard had humiliated me, but I wasn't going to let him have the last word. He had underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. I opened my laptop and began to draft an email to my colleagues. Richard and I had invited them to our wedding, and they deserved to know the truth. I wrote with a clear purpose, detailing Richard's betrayal without sounding bitter. I wanted the facts to speak for themselves. As I hit send, a sense of empowerment washed over me. This was just the beginning. Richard had tried to break me, but instead he had awakened a strength I never knew I had. I would make him regret ever taking me for granted. The game had just begun. The next morning I woke up to a flurry of messages. Colleagues, friends, family, everyone was shocked. The news of Richard's deceit had spread like wildfire. There was an outpouring of support for me, but among these, one message caught my eye. It was from Richard. "Can we meet?" "I think there's been a misunderstanding," his message read. Misunderstanding? The audacity of that word made my blood boil. I agreed to meet him, not for reconciliation, but to confront him, to face the man who had tried to break me. We met at a park, a neutral ground away from prying eyes. Richard was there, looking disheveled, a stark contrast to the composed man I once knew. "Elena, thank you for meeting me. I think you got it all wrong," he started, but I cut him off. "Save it, Richard. There's nothing you can say to justify your actions. You're a liar and a cheat. What did you expect, calling off our wedding and admitting you're already married?" Richard's face reddened. "I didn't expect you to react this way. You're blowing this out of proportion." "Out of proportion? You were living a double life, Richard. What did you expect me to do? Smile and wish you a happy marriage?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I know I messed up, but can't we put this behind us? I mean, we were good together, weren't we?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Put this behind us? You humiliated me, Richard, and now you expect me to just forget it?" "Elena, please, I know I've made a mistake, but I need you. My job is at risk because of this mess. You have connections. You can help me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want my help? After everything you've done?" He took a step closer. "Elena, we can sort this out. I know people are talking, but we can fix this. Together." I stepped back, my resolve hardening. "The only thing that needs fixing is your moral compass, Richard. We are done. And as for your job, you should have thought about that before you betrayed me." I turned and walked away, leaving Richard standing there, a picture of desperation. I felt a surge of strength within me. Richard thought he could manipulate me, but he was wrong. I was not the same person he had toyed with. The game had changed, and I was now the one in control. The days following my confrontation with Richard were a whirlwind. My mind was constantly racing, not with sadness but with a burning desire for retribution. Richard had tried to crush me, but he had only fueled my determination. I started by reaching out to a few trusted colleagues and friends, laying the groundwork for my plan. Word of mouth was powerful, and I intended to use it to expose Richard's true character. I shared my story not as a victim, but as a survivor of deceit. My narrative was factual, yet poignant, a tale of betrayal by a man who was a master of manipulation. Then came the opportunity I was waiting for. An industry event was coming up, one Richard and I were supposed to attend together. I decided to go alone, knowing well that Richard would be there. The evening of the event, I walked into the room with confidence. I could feel the eyes on me, the whispered conversations. I spotted Richard in the crowd, his face a mask of unease. As I mingled, I overheard snippets of conversation. "That's Elena. Can you believe what Richard did to her?" The word was spreading, just as I had planned. Then, Richard approached me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. "Elena, we need to talk. You're ruining me." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm not doing anything, Richard. If your reputation is ruined, you have only yourself to blame." He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Making me the villain." I pulled my arm away. "I don't need to make you a villain, Richard. You did that all by yourself." As I walked away, I could feel Richard's eyes burning into my back, but I didn't care. I was no longer the woman he thought he could control. The event was a success. By the end of the night, Richard's deceit was the talk of the town. His professional reputation was crumbling, just as he had tried to shatter mine. But this was just the beginning. I knew Richard would not go down without a fight. I needed to be ready for whatever he had planned. My resolve was firm. I would not back down. This was my battle, and I was determined to win. A few days after the industry event, I was at my office when my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was Richard. Against my better judgment, I answered, curiosity getting the better of me. Elena, you need to stop this madness. Richard's voice was laced with frustration. This isn't my doing, Richard. It's the consequence of your actions, I replied coolly. You're destroying my career. I've lost clients, friends. His voice trailed off into a mix of anger and desperation. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to betray me and lie to everyone, I retorted. I need your help, Elena. You have the power to fix this, to clear my name, he pleaded. Help you? After everything you've done? You must be delusional. I couldn't hide the contempt in my voice. Elena, please, we were good together once. Can't you remember that? There was a hint of something in his voice that sounded almost like sincerity. All I remember is a liar who was leading a double life, I snapped back. There was a pause on the line, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was colder, more calculating. You'll regret this, Elena. If I go down, I'll make sure you come down with me. A chill ran down my spine at his threat, but I refused to show my fear. Is that a threat, Richard? It's a promise, he said, his voice now a menacing whisper. Good luck with that, I said, and ended the call. As I sat back in my chair, I realized that this was far from over. Richard's threat loomed over me, but I was not about to let him intimidate me. I had come too far to back down now. I started to document everything, the calls, messages, any interaction with Richard. If he was planning to come after me, I would be ready. But as I delved deeper into my preparations, I found an unexpected ally. One of Richard's colleagues reached out to me, offering information about Richard's past misdemeanors at work, instances of credit stealing, manipulation, even harassment. It was more than I could have hoped for. Armed with this new information, I knew what I had to do. It was time to take the fight to Richard. I was going to expose him for who he truly was, not just to our social circle, but to his professional world as well. Richard had started this war, but I was going to finish it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. With the information provided by Richard's colleague, I meticulously compiled a dossier of his professional misconduct. It was a damning portrait of a man who had built his career on deceit and manipulation. I reached out to Richard's company's HR department, presenting them with the evidence. The response was swift and decisive. Richard was suspended pending a full investigation. The news spread quickly, and soon Richard's professional reputation was in tatters. But I wasn't done yet. I had one last card to play. I filed a legal claim against Richard for emotional distress and the financial losses incurred due to the canceled wedding. It was a bold move, but I was determined to hold him accountable. As I walked out of my lawyer's office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had stood up to Richard, and I had won. But it was a hollow victory. The man I had once loved was now nothing but a bitter memory. In the midst of all this, my uncle reached out to me. Elena, you've handled this situation with incredible strength and grace, he said. I shrugged. I did what I had to do. There's something I want to discuss with you, he continued. I've been thinking about retirement, and I believe you're the perfect person to take over the business. I was taken aback. Me? But, Uncle, there are others far more qualified. You have a keen mind for business, Elena. You've shown that time and again. I can't think of anyone better to lead the company into the future, he insisted. I was hesitant at first, but as we talked, the idea began to take root. This was my chance to step out of Richard's shadow and make a name for myself. I'll do it, I finally said. I'll take over the business. My uncle smiled. I knew you would. I have every confidence in you. As I left my uncle's office, I felt a sense of purpose and excitement for the first time in months. I was going to lead my uncle's company, and I was going to make it my own. Richard had tried to break me, but he had only made me stronger. I was no longer the woman he had betrayed. I was a leader, a fighter, and a survivor. As I looked ahead to the future, I knew there were challenges ahead, but I was ready for them. I had emerged from this ordeal stronger and more determined than ever. Richard's betrayal had been the catalyst for my transformation. I had lost a fiancé, but I had found myself. And that was worth more than any wedding could ever be. I can't do this anymore, Nathan. You've cheated again. Let's just get divorced. My voice was steady, but inside I was crumbling. The living room of our modest home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, felt cold and uninviting. Nathan stood there, his back to the fading sunset outside the window. His silhouette was as hard and unyielding as the man himself. Divorce? Really, Elise? After all this time? Nathan's voice was laced with sarcasm. He turned to face me, a smirk playing on his lips, the same lips that whispered sweet nothings and later lies. Yes, Nathan, 4 years of marriage and all I've earned are lies and betrayal. Even your parents agree with me. I felt a surge of courage, bolstered by the unexpected support from his parents. I saw their disapproving glances at their son, their sympathetic looks towards me. Nathan's face hardened. My parents? Ha! What do they know about our marriage? They know enough. My words were a whisper, but they sliced through the tension in the room. Nathan's smirk vanished, replaced by a sneer. Fine, Elise, you want a divorce? You'll get it. But remember, you're leaving with nothing. No alimony, no child support. You can take my parents and those brats with you. His words stung, but I stood my ground. I don't care about your conditions, Nathan. All I know is I can't be your wife any longer. He scoffed. You think you can survive without me? You're nothing without me, Elise. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I'd rather have nothing than live a lie with you. Nathan stepped closer, his face inches from mine. You know, being cheated on. Maybe it's also the fault of the person being cheated on. Ever thought of that, Elise? His words were a slap across my face. I recoiled, not from his proximity, but from the venom in his voice. The Nathan I once knew, the man I fell in love with, was gone. In his place stood a stranger, cold and cruel. I've grown tired of your whining and your pathetic face. You know what? A good-looking divorced man is quite the catch. His voice dripped with arrogance. I stared at him, my heart racing with a mix of fear and anger. Is this really who you are, Nathan? He shrugged. Take it or leave it, Elise. I don't care. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm leaving, Nathan, and I'm taking our daughters with me. They don't deserve a father like you. Nathan laughed, a hollow, mocking sound. Good luck, Elise. You'll come crawling back. They always do. But I knew I wouldn't. I turned my back on Nathan, on our life together, and walked away. The door closed behind me with a finality that echoed in my heart. It was over. The battle was just beginning, but I had taken the first step towards freedom. As I walked away, I realized this was not just the end. It was a new beginning. The morning after I left Nathan, I found myself at his parents' house. The air was thick with unspoken words as I sat at their kitchen table, my twin daughters playing quietly at my feet. Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton, Nathan's parents, exchanged a glance full of sorrow and regret. Elise, we need to tell you something about Nathan, Mr. Hamilton began, his voice heavy with unease. Something we should have shared a long time ago. I nodded, bracing myself for more revelations. Nathan has always been, well, charming to women. Since high school, Mrs. Hamilton interjected, her voice trembling. He would date multiple girls, juggling them without a care. My heart sank. The man I married, the father of my children, was a habitual cheater. It wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a pattern. We thought he changed when he met you, Mr. Hamilton continued, his voice filled with disappointment. But we were wrong. We're so sorry, Elise. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, but mostly I felt betrayed. Not just by Nathan, but by everyone who knew and said nothing. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out as a whisper, more to myself than to them. We hoped he had changed, Mrs. Hamilton said, tears in her eyes, but we were wrong. We failed you both. The revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. Nathan's parents, whom I had come to love and respect, had kept this crucial piece of information from me. Yet their remorse was genuine. Thank you for telling me now, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But I need to think about what to do next. As I left their house, my mind was racing. Nathan's betrayal wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a part of who he was. And I had been blind to it all. In the following days, I poured my energy into my job search. With a renewed sense of purpose, I landed a position at a marketing firm. It wasn't just about financial independence. It was about reclaiming my identity. I also started gathering evidence of Nathan's infidelity. Every receipt, every late-night call, every unexplained absence. I meticulously documented everything. If Nathan thought I was going to walk away quietly, he was sorely mistaken. The final straw came a week later when I discovered another love letter in Nathan's belongings, filled with passionate declarations. It was like a punch to the gut. Confronting him wasn't an option. I needed a different approach. an approach that would hit him where it hurt the most. I called my lawyer and set the wheels in motion for the divorce. Nathan would learn the hard way that betrayal comes with a price, and I was going to make sure he paid it in full. I sat across from my lawyer, Mr. Jacobs, in his stark, unadorned office. The papers in front of me were a tangible representation of my newfound resolve. "Everything's in order," Mr. Jacobs said, adjusting his glasses. "Once Nathan is served these papers, the process begins. Are you ready for this?" I nodded, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. "I am. Nathan needs to understand that he can't just walk over people without consequences." Mr. Jacobs gave me an understanding look. "And the evidence of his affairs?" "I have them," I replied, handing him a folder thick with documentation. Photos, messages, receipts, everything that painted the sordid picture of Nathan's betrayal. "Good. This will strengthen your case for alimony and child support. It's not just about the money, Elise. It's about holding him accountable." As I left the lawyer's office, I felt a sense of empowerment. I wasn't just a victim of Nathan's infidelity. I was a woman taking control of her life. The following weeks were a whirlwind. I juggled my new job, caring for my daughters, and the divorce proceedings. It was exhausting, but with each passing day, I felt stronger, more capable. Then came the day Nathan was served the divorce papers. His reaction was immediate and explosive. He called me, his voice dripping with anger and disbelief. "Are you out of your mind, Elise? You think you can take me to the cleaners and get away with it?" I held the phone away from my ear, his tirade a distant, angry buzz. When he finally paused for breath, I spoke calmly. "It's not about revenge, Nathan. It's about fairness. You broke our marriage vows, and now you have to face the consequences." "You won't get a dime from me," he spat. "We'll see," I replied, and ended the call. That night, I lay awake, thinking about the path ahead. It was going to be a tough battle, but I was ready for it. Nathan had underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. I thought about my daughters, sleeping peacefully in the next room. They deserved a better life, a life free from the shadow of their father's deceit. And I was going to give it to them, no matter what it took. Nathan's true colors were showing, and everyone was going to see them. The charming, handsome man they knew was just a facade. Underneath lay a man capable of deceit and betrayal, and I was going to expose him for who he really was. The game had just begun, and I was playing to win. The courtroom was cold and sterile, the air charged with tension. I sat rigidly, my lawyer beside me as we waited for the judge to enter. Across the room, Nathan sat with his lawyer, his expression one of smug confidence. As the judge entered and proceedings began, I felt a knot in my stomach. This was it, the moment of truth. "Nathan Taylor, the evidence presented by your wife indicates a pattern of infidelity and financial irresponsibility," the judge began, his voice stern. "How do you respond to these allegations?" Nathan stood, his posture relaxed, almost dismissive. "Your Honor, my wife is exaggerating. Sure, I might have had a few indiscretions, but who hasn't? She's blowing this whole thing out of proportion." His cavalier attitude infuriated me. He still didn't grasp the severity of his actions. "Mr. Taylor, this is a court of law, not a social club. I advise you to take these proceedings seriously," the judge warned. As the hearing progressed, Nathan's facade began to crumble. Each piece of evidence my lawyer presented seemed to hit him like a physical blow. Photos, messages, bank statements, the truth laid bare for all to see. When it was my turn to speak, I stood, my hands trembling slightly. "Your Honor, I entered this marriage believing in love and trust. What I got instead was deception and heartache. Nathan's actions have not only broken our family, but have also set a poor example for our children." Nathan rolled his eyes, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by the judge. The impact of his actions goes beyond just emotional pain. Financially, I was left in a vulnerable position, having to start from scratch while caring for our daughters. "I seek fair compensation, not out of spite, but out of necessity," I concluded, my voice steady. The judge nodded, making notes. "Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. Your statement has been noted." As the hearing ended, Nathan approached me, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "You're going to regret this, Elise. You've made an enemy out of me." I met his gaze squarely. "No, Nathan, you did that all by yourself." Leaving the courtroom, I felt a sense of closure. This was more than just a legal battle. It was a fight for my dignity and the future of my children. Nathan had shown his true colors, and now he would face the consequences. The drama was far from over, but I had taken a significant step in reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. The divorce settlement was more than just a legal victory. It was a moral one. Nathan had been ordered to pay a substantial amount in alimony and child support, a decision that left him seething. A few days after the ruling, I received a call from Nathan. His voice was a mix of anger and desperation. "You think you've won, Elise? You think you can just take my money and run? You've ruined me." His words were meant to intimidate me, but I felt an inner strength that hadn't been there before. "This isn't about winning or losing, Nathan. It's about taking responsibility. You made your choices, and now you're facing the consequences. You'll pay for this. I'll make sure of it," he threatened. "Threats won't change anything, Nathan. It's time for you to start facing reality," I replied before ending the call. In the weeks that followed, Nathan tried various tactics to evade his financial obligations. But with the law on my side and a determined lawyer, we countered each attempt. Meanwhile, word of Nathan's actions and the divorce began to spread. His reputation, once that of a charming and successful businessman, was now tarnished. He faced scrutiny and judgment from those he once considered friends and colleagues. As I rebuilt my life, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Nathan was finally experiencing the fallout of his actions. His once carefree life was now filled with the repercussions of his choices. But it wasn't just about Nathan's downfall. This was also about my rise from the ashes of a broken marriage. I was building a new life for myself and my daughters, a life free from lies and betrayal. One evening, as I put my daughters to bed, my younger daughter looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. "Mommy, are you happy now?" Her question caught me off guard, but then I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, I am. We're going to be just fine." As I kissed them good night, I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and in its wake, it had left a newfound strength and resilience in me. Nathan's downfall was a harsh reminder of the price of deceit, but it was also a testament to the power of standing up for oneself. I had fought for justice, not just for me, but for my children as well. The chapter of Nathan was closed, but a new chapter was beginning for us, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. The world outside my window seemed brighter, the air fresher. It had been 6 months since the divorce was finalized, and life had taken on a new rhythm. My daughters were thriving, happy and adjusted, and I had found fulfillment in my job and newfound independence. One afternoon, as I sat in my office, my phone buzzed. It was a call from Nathan. Hesitant, I answered. "Elise, you've destroyed my life." Nathan's voice was frantic, a stark contrast to his once cool demeanor. I sighed. "Nathan, you did that yourself. I just stopped accepting it." "I lost my job because of the scandal, Elise. Because of you." His voice cracked with desperation. "That was the result of your actions, Nathan, not mine," I replied firmly. "You think you're better off without me? You think you've won?" His words were laced with bitterness. "I didn't do this to win, Nathan. I did it to survive, to protect our children. This isn't a game, it's life, and it's time you took responsibility for yours." There was silence on the other end, and then he hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment, reflecting on how far I had come. In the months following the divorce, rumors of Nathan's behavior had circulated. His charming facade had crumbled, revealing the man beneath. He had lost his job, his reputation, and much of his social circle. The consequences of his actions were catching up to him. But for me, life was moving in a positive direction. I had reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and my relationship with my daughters had never been stronger. We had created a new family unit, one built on love, trust, and respect. As I left work that day, I thought about the journey I had been on, from the pain and betrayal to the fight for justice and the rebuilding of my life. It had been a difficult path, but one that led to growth and empowerment. Nathan's downfall was a harsh lesson in accountability. For me, it was a reminder that no matter how dark things seem, there is always a path to light. I picked up my daughters from school, their laughter and chatter filling the car. As we drove home, I realized that this was what true happiness felt like. It wasn't just about overcoming Nathan, it was about rediscovering myself and building a better future for my family. The road ahead was uncertain, but I faced it with a sense of hope and optimism. The chapter of Nathan was closed, but our story was just beginning. A story of resilience, strength, and the unbreakable bond of a mother and her children. As I sat at the elegantly set Thanksgiving dinner table in my parents' house, surrounded by the comforting familiarity of my childhood home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. At 60, these visits had become my refuge from the stifling atmosphere of my own home. The lively chatter of my daughter Emma with her grandmother filled the room, a stark contrast to the silence that often enveloped my conversations with Richard, my husband. My phone vibrated sharply, disrupting the warmth of the moment. Richard's name flashed across the screen, sending a shiver down my spine. With a hesitant sigh, I excused myself. "Excuse me, it's Richard. I'll just take this in the kitchen." But as I rose, my fingers slipped and the phone's speaker activated. "Elaine, having fun over there?" "Well, don't bother coming back." Richard's voice, unnaturally cheerful, echoed through the room. I stood frozen, phone in hand, as his words hung in the air. "What are you talking about, Richard?" "Oh, I've decided it's time for a change. I've moved Emma's stuff into the house. There's no room for you anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's fork dropped with a clatter, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Richard, what in the world are you saying?" My voice was barely above a whisper, heart pounding in my chest. "It's simple, really. Emma doesn't want to come home because of you. Without you, she can finally live the life she deserves, like when she was a child. So leave." Emma stood up abruptly, anger flashing in her eyes. "Dad, what are you—" "Stay out of this, Emma." Richard's voice cut through, sharp and cold. "This is between me and your mother." My cheeks burned with a mix of humiliation and anger. "You want me to leave our home? Just like that?" "Yes, and you can go to some shelter or whatever. Doesn't matter to me." The call ended abruptly, leaving a haunting silence. My mother reached out, her hand trembling. "Elaine, honey." But before she could finish, Emma burst into laughter, incredulous and bitter. "He's lost it, Grandma. Completely lost it." Inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions. Humiliation, anger, and a strange sense of liberation. He better be ready, I thought to myself. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. As I lay in my childhood bed that night, the moonlight casting shadows across the room, my mind wandered back through the years, sifting through memories of Richard and me. Our story wasn't always filled with cold silences and bitter words. There was a time when Richard's gaze held warmth, and his touch promised safety. I met Richard when I was in my late 20s. He was charming, confident, and seemed to have an answer for everything. I was captivated by his charisma and how he seemed to take the world in his stride. We married within a year of meeting, a whirlwind romance that felt like a fairy tale. But the fairy tale began to crumble soon after Emma was born. Richard's affection for our daughter was undeniable, yet as his love for her grew, his regard for me seemed to wane. It was as if his heart had room only for one. "Elaine, can't you see you're smothering her?" "Let her breathe," he would chide whenever I tried to be involved in Emma's upbringing. His words stung, but I believed he was just being an overly protective father. As Emma grew, so did Richard's disdain towards me. The man who once looked at me like I was his world now barely acknowledged my existence, except to criticize. "Why can't you be more like Emma? She's only 10 and already so independent," he'd say with a sneer. I remember the night when Emma, at 15, won a school award. We were supposed to celebrate as a family, but Richard turned it into a lecture session. "Elaine, why can't you achieve anything like our daughter? You're just wasting your life away," he said, his words like daggers. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of years of his contempt. It wasn't just the words, it was the dismissive glances, the heavy sighs, the way he'd turn away when I entered a room. I had become a ghost in my own home, invisible and insignificant. But that night, as I lay in the quiet, a resolve began to stir within me. Richard's callousness on the phone, his brazen dismissal of our life together, it had lit a fire in me. I wasn't going to let him erase me from my own story. I turned on my side, closing my eyes, but sleep eluded me. The shadows on the wall seemed to whisper, urging me to stand up, to fight back. And I knew, deep down, that I was ready to do just that. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Over breakfast, Mom tried to discuss Richard's call, but I steered the conversation elsewhere. I wasn't ready to delve into that can of worms, not yet. Emma, sensing my unease, didn't press either. As we cleaned up, my thoughts drifted back to the recent years with Richard. His controlling behavior wasn't just confined to our daughter. It seeped into every aspect of our lives, tightening like a vice around my freedom. "Elaine, I don't want you working late. You need to be home to cook dinner," he would demand, disregarding my career in the library, which I cherished. His rules were arbitrary and ever-changing, designed to keep me off balance. If I wore something he didn't approve of, he would scoff. "Dressing up? Trying to impress someone? You should focus on being a better wife and mother." Even my friendships weren't spared. "You're spending too much time with Linda. She's a bad influence," he declared one day, his words slicing through years of friendship like a knife. But it wasn't just the control. It was the humiliation. At social gatherings, he would belittle me with backhanded compliments, often in front of Emma. "Elaine tries her best, but you know, she's not the brightest bulb," he'd say with a laugh that made my skin crawl. Emma saw it all. At first, she tried to defend me, but Richard's influence was too strong. "Mom, just ignore him," she would whisper, a look of helplessness in her eyes. I remember the day Emma left for college. Richard was beaming with pride, but there was a coldness in his eyes when he turned to me. "See, Elaine, this is what happens when you raise a child right. She's not like you, thank God." That stung more than anything. The implication that I had no part in our daughter's upbringing, that my years of love and sacrifice meant nothing. As these memories churned in my mind, a simmering anger began to bubble to the surface. No more. I wouldn't let Richard dictate my life, not anymore. The phone call was the last straw. It was time for Richard to face the consequences of his actions. I looked at Emma, her face a mirror of my resolve. "Emma, there's something I need to do when we get back. It's going to change everything, but I need you to trust me." Emma nodded, determination in her eyes. "I'm with you, Mom, all the way." The drive back home was filled with a tense silence. Emma and I were both lost in our thoughts as the weight of the impending confrontation with Richard hanging heavy in the air. Once home, I retreated to my room, ostensibly to unpack, but really to make a call that would set everything in motion. I dialed the number of a divorce attorney I had discreetly noted down a few months ago. My hands trembled as I heard the line connect. "Hello, this is Elaine Richardson. I need to discuss a divorce." The lawyer, Mr. Adams, was calm and reassuring. "I understand this is a difficult time, Mrs. Richardson. We can help you navigate through this process." As I detailed Richard's behavior over the years, Mr. Adams listened intently. "We can file for divorce on grounds of emotional abuse. It seems you have a strong case." Feeling a sense of empowerment, I replied, "I want to go through with this, and I want him to pay for what he's done, not just legally, but financially too." Mr. Adams assured me, "We will do everything we can to ensure you receive what you're entitled to." After the call, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. For the first time in years, I was taking control of my life. Later that evening, Richard returned home, his demeanor smug and triumphant. "So, you're back. Realized you have nowhere else to go?" His words cut deep, but I held my ground. "I went to my parents' house, Richard. Remember the place you practically banished me to?" He scoffed. "I did us a favor. Emma and I are better off without you." "That's where you're wrong," I said, my voice steady. "Emma is not a pawn in your twisted game, and I am not your prisoner anymore." Richard's face contorted in anger. "What are you blabbering about? You think you can survive without me?" I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "Watch me." Emma entered the room, her expression one of quiet strength. "Dad, you've gone too far. Mom doesn't deserve this." Richard sneered. "Oh, now you're taking her side? I thought you understood, Emma. Your mother is useless." Emma's eyes blazed with anger. "No, Dad. The only useless thing here is your cruelty. We're done living under your shadow." As we stood there, united against Richard's scorn, I knew we had crossed a point of no return. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight for my freedom. The morning after our declaration, the house felt like a battlefield. Richard's usual air of arrogance was more pronounced, as if he was daring us to challenge him. As I made breakfast, my hands shook slightly, but my resolve was firm. At the table, Richard broke the silence with his typical condescension. So, Elaine, have you finally realized your place? Ready to beg for forgiveness? I kept my voice calm. There's nothing to beg for, Richard. I'm not the one who should be apologizing. He laughed, a cold, harsh sound. You've always been delusional, but this is a new low, even for you. Emma, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Dad, this isn't a joke. We're serious. Mom is filing for divorce. The look on Richard's face was one I had never seen before. Confusion, disbelief, and then anger. Divorce? You think you can just walk away from me after everything I've done for this family? It's precisely because of what you've done, I said, my voice rising. Years of belittling, controlling, and humiliating me. I won't stand for it anymore. Richard slammed his fist on the table, his face red. I made this family. Without me, you're nothing. Emma stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You didn't make this family, Dad. You tore it apart. And Mom is more than something. She's everything you're not. His gaze shifted between us, a wild look in his eyes. You're teaming up against me, your own husband, your own father? This isn't about sides, Richard. It's about right and wrong. I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. And what you've done is unforgivably wrong. Richard's laughter was bitter. You think you can just leave and everything will be fine? You have no idea what you're in for. I met his gaze squarely. I know exactly what I'm in for. Freedom from you. Emma moved to stand beside me, a united front. We're done being under your control, Dad. It's over. Richard stood abruptly, his chair toppling behind him. You'll regret this, both of you. You don't know what I'm capable of. As he stormed out of the room, the tension he left behind was suffocating. But amidst that tension, there was also a sense of liberation. The battle had begun, and I was ready to fight for my freedom, my dignity, and my daughter's future. The days following our confrontation with Richard were a whirlwind of activity. I met with Mr. Adams several times, laying out the groundwork for the divorce. He was meticulous, ensuring every detail was accounted for. We'll make sure you get what you deserve, Elaine, both financially and legally, he assured me. Richard's reaction to the divorce papers was volcanic. He stormed into the house one evening, papers in hand, his face a mask of fury. You're actually going through with this? Do you have any idea what you're doing, Elaine? I faced him with a calm I didn't feel. Yes, Richard, I do. For the first time in years, I'm making a decision for myself. He laughed mockingly. You think you can survive without me? You're nothing without my money, my support. I'm not afraid of being on my own, Richard. I'm more afraid of spending another day under the same roof as you, I replied, my voice steady. Emma, hearing the commotion, came downstairs. What's going on? Your mother has lost her mind. That's what's going on, Richard spat out. She thinks she can just take half of everything I've worked for. It's not just what you've worked for, Dad. It's what Mom has endured for all these years. She deserves every penny and more. Emma countered. Richard's eyes narrowed. Don't be foolish, Emma. This will ruin us all. No, Dad, it will free us, especially Mom. As the days turned into weeks, the house became a cold war zone. Richard moved into the guest room, his presence like a dark cloud. Despite his attempts to sway me, my decision was final. The day of the first court hearing arrived. As I sat in the courtroom, waiting for the proceedings to start, I felt an odd sense of serenity. I was doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for Emma as well. Richard, on the other hand, was a bundle of nerves. When his lawyer talked about a settlement, I couldn't help but smile. Richard, who always prided himself on his control, was now at the mercy of the court. As the judge reviewed our case, Richard's face grew paler. When the judge turned to me and asked if I had anything to add, I took a deep breath. Your Honor, for years I endured emotional abuse and manipulation at the hands of my husband. I'm not seeking revenge, I'm seeking justice, for myself and for my daughter. The judge nodded, his expression solemn. I understand, Mrs. Richardson. This court will ensure fair judgment is passed. As we left the courtroom, Richard's defeated look was all I needed to see. The battle wasn't over, but I had won the first round, and I was ready for whatever came next. In the weeks that followed, my life felt like it was under a microscope, scrutinized by lawyers in the court. But with each passing day, I felt stronger, more in control of my destiny. Richard's attempts to intimidate me became more desperate and less effective. The final court hearing was a day I had both dreaded and longed for. As Richard and I sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, I couldn't help but reflect on the man I once loved, now a stranger filled with bitterness. The judge's voice was firm as he delivered the verdict. The court finds in favor of Mrs. Richardson. Mr. Richardson, you are required to pay alimony and half of your assets. Richard's face was a picture of shock and rage. He stood up abruptly, his chair clattering to the floor. This is ridiculous. She doesn't deserve a penny. Mr. Richardson, control yourself, the judge admonished. The court has made its decision. As we left the courtroom, Richard's parting words were venomous. You'll regret this, Elaine. You think you've won, but you haven't seen the end of me. But I no longer feared him. His words, once so cutting, now seemed empty and powerless. In the months that followed, I found a small apartment close to Emma's place. I started a new job at a local library, a place that had always brought me peace. The alimony from Richard allowed me financial freedom I hadn't experienced in years. Emma and I grew closer, our relationship no longer overshadowed by Richard's presence. She was thriving in her career and personal life, a stark contrast to the frightened young woman she had been. As for Richard, the last I heard, he was living a diminished life, his pride and finances greatly reduced. His attempts to reach out to Emma and me were met with silence. The man who once held so much power over us was now just a memory, a shadow of the past. I often sit on my balcony, a cup of tea in hand, looking out at the peaceful neighborhood. I've found a sense of tranquility and purpose that was missing for so long. The journey was painful, filled with struggles and heartaches, but it led me to a place of peace. Emma visits often, and we talk about everything and nothing. Our bond, forged in adversity, is now unbreakable. As I look towards the future, I do so with hope and a sense of freedom. I've emerged from the shadows of my past stronger and more resilient. I've learned that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest triumphs. And as for Richard, he is nothing more than a distant echo, a reminder of a life I once lived and the strength I gained in leaving it behind. The new year always brought a sense of fresh beginnings, but this time it arrived with an unsettling surprise. My doorbell rang, piercing the quiet of my small, cozy home. Expecting maybe a neighbor or a late courier, I casually swung the door open. My heart plummeted into my stomach. There, on my doorstep, stood two figures from my past I never wished to see again, my sister Claire and my ex-husband Ethan. Claire, with her ever-present smug smile, looked almost triumphant standing next to Ethan. Ethan's presence was like a reopened wound, his expression a mix of arrogance and false pity. 3 years had passed since I last saw them, and here they were, as if they'd never shattered my world. "Why are you here?" My voice was a shaky whisper, betraying my shock. Claire's laughter was like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, look, Ethan, she's speechless. What's wrong, Anna? Not happy to see your dear sister and loving ex-husband?" Ethan leaned against the door frame, his gaze scanning the room behind me. "Yeah, Anna, we just thought we'd pay a visit, see how the old place is holding up without us." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to slam the door in their faces. "This is no longer your place, Ethan, and you, Claire, have no business here either." Their smirks only widened at my attempt to stand ground. Ethan's next words were like a slap. "You know, Anna, I really regret ever tying myself to you. What a waste of my best years." Claire chimed in, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Poor Anna, always the underachiever, even in marriage. Their cruel words stung, but before I could muster a response, a voice from behind startled us all. "Who's at the door, Anna?" It was my father, George, whom I wasn't expecting until later that evening. His unexpected presence threw Claire and Ethan off balance. The smirks faded from their faces as they awkwardly shifted their stance. "Dad, you're back early," I managed to say, my voice laced with relief. George's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene before him. "Claire? Ethan? What in the world are you two doing here?" Their composure crumbled, the confident facade melting away under my father's stern gaze. For a moment, there was silence, a tense air hanging between us. It was broken only by Claire's hesitant voice. We just wanted to wish Anna a happy new year." George's disbelief was palpable. "Really? After years of silence, you suddenly remember family ties on New Year's Day?" His tone was icy, hinting at unspoken anger and disappointment. Ethan cleared his throat, attempting to regain his composure. "Well, We also had some news to share, but maybe this isn't the right time. I knew there was more to their visit than just New Year's greetings. Their unexpected arrival, the smug looks, the veiled insults, it was all too familiar. The same old pattern of deceit and manipulation. But this time, I wasn't the same person they had left behind. As they awkwardly excused themselves, promising to return another time, I closed the door with a mixture of relief and dread. Their return could mean only one thing. Trouble was brewing once again. And this time, I had to be ready. After Claire and Ethan left, the house felt oppressively silent. My father, George, sat across from me, his brow furrowed in concern. "Anna, what was that all about? Why are they back?" I sighed, feeling the weight of years of suppressed memories. "I don't know, Dad, but with Claire and Ethan, it's never without a reason." George nodded, his expression darkening. "I remember how things ended, how they betrayed you. You don't owe them anything, Anna." I appreciated his support, but there was a part of the story that even he didn't fully understand, the depth of Claire's manipulation and deceit. It went back to our childhood, a time that should have been filled with innocent memories but was instead marked by Claire's selfishness. "Dad, do you remember my 10th birthday? The porcelain doll Grandma gave me?" I asked, my voice tinged with sadness. George's face softened. "Of course, you loved that doll." I nodded, the memory vivid in my mind. "Claire broke it on purpose, but she cried and told Mom it was an accident, that I was the one who knocked it over." George looked surprised. "I never knew that. Your mother always said it was an accident." "That was just the beginning," I continued, the old wounds reopening. "She always played the innocent, and I was the one who got blamed. She knew exactly how to manipulate everyone around her." I could see the regret in George's eyes, the realization of what he hadn't seen all those years. "I'm sorry, Anna. I should have seen through it. It's not your fault, Dad. We were all fooled by Claire's act." I paused, taking a deep breath. "Even with Ethan, she played us both. They deserve each other." George reached across, taking my hand in a firm, comforting grip. "What matters is that you're free from their toxicity now. Don't let them drag you back into their drama." I nodded, trying to muster a smile. The conversation with my father made it clear that the past wasn't as buried as I had hoped. Claire and Ethan's return wasn't just a simple visit. It was a harbinger of more turmoil to come. That night, sleep eluded me. The memories of Claire's manipulations, the way she had always outshone me in our parents' eyes, the way she'd effortlessly charmed Ethan away from me. It all swirled in my mind. Her return meant she was up to something, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread about what was to come. But amidst the turmoil of thoughts, a determined resolve began to form. I wouldn't be the passive victim this time. I would stand up to Claire and Ethan, whatever their game was. This time, I was ready to fight back. In the days following Claire and Ethan's visit, their words and smirks haunted me. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself, but the past refused to stay buried. The memory of my marriage to Ethan, once filled with love and promise, now felt like a thorny path I had been forced to tread barefoot. It started beautifully. Ethan was charming, attentive, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. We were happy, or so I believed. But then came the subtle changes, the late nights, the unexplained absences, the evasive answers. I trusted him, ignoring the nagging doubts and the whispers of intuition. Then, one evening, the veil lifted. I returned home early from a business trip, the anticipation of surprising Ethan tingling in my heart, but the surprise was mine. I found Ethan and Claire together, their laughter echoing in our living room, a scene that shattered my world. The confrontation that followed was a blur of tears, accusations, and bitter truths. Claire, with her characteristic lack of remorse, simply shrugged, her words slicing through me. "You were always too busy with your little job, Anna. Ethan needed someone, and I was there. It's not our fault you couldn't keep your husband's interest." Ethan's justification was equally cold. "I thought I loved you, Anna, but Claire, she's different, exciting. You and I were never right for each other." Their betrayal was a double-edged sword, cutting deep into my heart and my trust. The divorce that followed was quick, Ethan and Claire making no secret of their relationship. I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken life, feeling foolish and betrayed. Now, as I sat in my office, the memories gnawing at my mind, anger bubbled inside me. How dare they waltz back into my life after what they did? How dare they think they could just disrupt my peace again? But it was more than anger. It was a burning desire for retribution. I wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain they had caused me. The idea of revenge, once foreign and distasteful, now seemed like the only way to close this painful chapter of my life. I made a decision I would confront them, demand answers. But this time I wouldn't be the blindsided, heartbroken wife. I would be strong, unyielding. They had underestimated me once. They wouldn't make the same mistake again. I picked up my phone and dialed Ethan's number. My voice was steady, my resolve firm. "Ethan, we need to talk. Meet me at the cafe on 5th Street. Tomorrow, noon." His surprised stammer was a small victory, but it was enough. "Sure, Anna, tomorrow then." The call ended, and for the first time in days I felt a sense of control. The game had begun, and this time I was playing to win. The cafe was bustling with the midday crowd when I arrived. I spotted Ethan seated at a corner table, his posture tense. As I approached, his attempt at a casual smile didn't reach his eyes. "Anna, thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me," he started, his voice laced with feigned concern. "I don't," I replied sharply, taking a seat across from him. "But I need answers. Why are you and Claire back in my life?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Look, Anna, things haven't been great for us. After we left, we had some tough times." I felt a bitter satisfaction seeing him uneasy. "Tough times? You expect sympathy from me?" No, of course not," he stammered. "It's just that Claire is pregnant. We thought it's time to mend fences, for the sake of family." His words hit me like a cold wave. Claire, pregnant? A part of me felt a pang of hurt, but it was quickly overshadowed by skepticism. "And you think I would, welcome you with open arms?" I asked, my voice laced with disbelief. "It's not just that," Ethan said, avoiding my gaze. "There's the matter of the inheritance, your father's estate." So there it was, the true reason behind their sudden reappearance. It wasn't guilt or a desire for reconciliation. It was greed. "You have some nerve, Ethan. You cheat, you leave, and now you come back for money?" I felt my anger rising, my voice growing louder despite the public setting. "People can change, Anna. We've been through a lot. We just want a chance to start over, to be a family," he pleaded. "A family built on lies and deceit," I retorted, my heart racing with anger. Just then my phone vibrated. It was a message from Claire. "We need to talk. Alone, my place, tonight." I looked up at Ethan, my decision made. "Tell Claire I'll see her tonight. But make no mistake, Ethan, this isn't a family reunion. This is me settling the score." Ethan's face fell, a mixture of surprise and concern etching his features. As I stood up to leave, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. For too long, I had been the victim of their selfish actions. But now the tables were turning. I walked out of the cafe, leaving Ethan behind, my mind racing with possibilities. Tonight's meeting with Claire would be more than just a confrontation. It would be the beginning of my revenge, a chance to reclaim my dignity, and make them regret ever crossing me. After leaving Ethan at the cafe, a mix of emotions swirled within me. Anger, betrayal, but above all, a newfound determination. As I drove home, my mind raced with plans for the evening's confrontation with Claire. I needed to be prepared, to stand my ground against her manipulative tactics. As the evening approached, I stood in front of my mirror, steeling myself. The reflection showed a woman changed by adversity, no longer the naive girl who once fell for Ethan's charm or got overshadowed by Claire's deceit. Tonight I was facing my past, ready to confront and overcome it. Claire's house was a stark contrast to mine, lavish, ostentatious, a testament to her and Ethan's superficial values. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. The door swung open and there she stood, Claire as poised and arrogant as ever. "Anna, come in. I'm glad you could make it." Her tone was condescending, as if she was doing me a favor by allowing me into her home. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the extravagant decor. "So, Claire, why am I here? What do you want from me?" I asked, cutting to the chase. Claire led me to the living room, her movements graceful yet calculated. "I wanted to talk to you, sister to sister. It's been too long, and with the baby coming, I thought it's time we bury the hatchet." I almost laughed at her audacity. "Bury the hatchet? After you stole my husband and now come back for my father's inheritance?" Claire's expression hardened for a moment before she regained her composure. "Anna, let's be practical. Ethan and I need financial stability for our child. Your father's estate can help with that. Her blatant greed was repulsive. You expect me to just hand over what's rightfully mine? After everything you've done? It's not just about the money, Anna, Claire said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. It's about family. We're still sisters, after all. I stared at her, incredulous. You lost the right to call me sister the moment you betrayed me. There was a silence, a tension that hung heavily between us. Then Claire's facade cracked, her true nature surfacing. Fine, if you're going to be selfish about it, then let's talk legalities. You know Dad's will favors the first grandchild. My baby will ensure Ethan and I get the inheritance. Her words hit me like a physical blow. This was her game, to use her pregnancy as leverage, to manipulate our father's will in her favor. You're unbelievable, Claire. You think you can just manipulate everyone and everything to your liking. But not this time. I won't let you. My voice was firm, unyielding. Claire smirked, a cold, calculating look in her eyes. We'll see, Anna. We'll see how long you can keep up this righteous act. I turned to leave, my mind reeling from Claire's callousness. As I drove away from her house, a plan began to form in my mind. Claire and Ethan were playing a dangerous game, but now I knew the rules. It was time for them to learn that I was no longer the passive player in their twisted game. The days following my encounter with Claire were spent in a state of heightened alertness, preparing for the inevitable legal battle over my father's estate. I sought legal counsel, determined to protect what was rightfully mine and my father's legacy from Claire and Ethan's greedy clutches. As I delved deeper into the legal intricacies, a piece of shocking news reached me. Ethan's business, the one he had started with such bravado, had collapsed. They were drowning in debt, their lavish lifestyle unsustainable. This revelation shed new light on their sudden reappearance and desperation for the inheritance. I met with my lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Miss Harper, to discuss our strategy. They're cornered financially and legally, she said, scanning the documents. Your sister's claim about the will favoring the first grandchild doesn't stand on solid legal ground. We can fight this. Her confidence was reassuring, but I knew Claire and Ethan wouldn't give up easily. They were like cornered animals, unpredictable and dangerous. My resolve was tested sooner than expected. One evening, as I returned home from work, I found Claire waiting on my doorstep, her expression a mix of defiance and desperation. Anna, we need to talk, she said, her voice uncharacteristically shaky. I eyed her warily. I have nothing to say to you, Claire. This matter is now in the hands of lawyers. She stepped forward, blocking my path. Please, Anna, I'm not pregnant. It was a lie, a stupid plan Ethan and I concocted to sway Dad's will in our favor. Her confession, though shocking, didn't surprise me. It was just another deceit in their long list of manipulations. So, all this time you've been lying. What now, Claire? Ready to admit defeat? I asked, my voice cold. Claire's eyes welled up with tears, but they didn't move me. I don't know what to do. Ethan's business is ruined. We're losing everything. I need your help, Anna. Her plea for help, after all the pain she had caused, was almost laughable. You want my help? After everything you've done? You really are delusional. She grabbed my arm, desperation in her grasp. Please, Anna, I'm your sister. Remember how we used to be before all this? I pulled away, her touch repulsive to me. The sister I knew died the moment you betrayed me. You made your choice, Claire. Now live with it. Leaving Claire standing alone, I entered my house, closing the door on her and our shared past. The sense of finality was liberating. I was no longer bound by the chains of our toxic relationship. That night, as I sat alone in the quiet of my living room, I realized that this was more than just a battle for inheritance. It was a fight for my own liberation, a chance to finally close the chapter on Claire and Ethan's treachery and move on with my life. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and tense negotiations. Claire and Ethan's desperation became more evident as their financial woes escalated. Despite this, I remained steadfast, bolstered by Miss Harper's expertise and my own newfound strength. Then came the day of the decisive court hearing. The courtroom was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the heated emotions simmering beneath the surface. Ethan and Claire sat together, a facade of unity, but the strain was evident in their haggard appearances. As the proceedings began, Miss Harper was methodical and precise, dismantling each of Claire and Ethan's arguments with legal acumen. Claire's lie about her pregnancy was exposed, further weakening their position. I watched Claire as the reality of her situation dawned on her. The confident, manipulative sister I once knew was gone, replaced by a shell of her former self, consumed by the consequences of her actions. During a recess, Claire approached me, a plea in her eyes. "Anna, please. I know I don't deserve your mercy, but we're ruined. We have nothing." Her words, once capable of swaying me, now fell on deaf ears. "You brought this on yourselves, Claire. You chose greed and deceit. Now you must face the results." The final judgment was a resounding victory for me. The judge ruled in my favor, ensuring that the inheritance remained rightfully mine. Claire and Ethan left the courtroom defeated, their schemes reduced to ashes. But as I walked out, a sense of closure filled me. This wasn't just a legal victory, it was a personal triumph over the ghosts of my past. Claire and Ethan's downfall was the karmic justice they deserved, but for me, it was a liberation from the chains of betrayal and hurt. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life, free from the shadows of Claire and Ethan. The wound they left would always be a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and with a clearer understanding of who I was and what I stood for. And so, as I sat in my garden one evening, watching the sunset, I realized that true victory wasn't in revenge or the suffering of those who wronged me. It was in the peace and strength I found within myself, the ability to move forward, and the promise of new beginnings. My name is Alexandra Bennett, and I have been married to Ethan Bennett for 15 long years. Our life, outwardly perfect, was a facade hiding a painful truth. It was a chilly evening in November when my world began to crumble. I returned home early from a friend's art exhibition, anticipating a quiet night with Ethan and our son Nathan. But what I found was the stark opposite. I heard their voices before I saw them, Ethan's and a woman's, hushed, yet passionate. Creeping closer, I heard words that cut through my heart like a serrated knife. "Once she's out of the picture, we'll have it all, Isabel. Just a little longer." Ethan's voice slithered through the air. Isabel, his mistress, laughed, a sound so cold it could freeze blood. "I can't wait to see the look on her face when she finds out. You're a genius, Ethan." Their cruel laughter echoed in the hallway, a sinister symphony that shattered my trust. I stood frozen, a statue of disbelief, as their plan to upend my life unfolded with each word. I had known about Ethan's infidelities, his late nights, the scent of foreign perfume, the lipstick stains I pretended not to see, but this was a betrayal of a different caliber. He wasn't just unfaithful, he was plotting against me, our son, our life. Stumbling back, I found myself in Nathan's room. He was my anchor, my 14-year-old, who looked so much like his father, but with a gentleness Ethan never possessed. "Mom, you're home early." Nathan's voice was tinged with surprise. "Is everything okay?" I forced a smile, my heart breaking in silence. "Everything's fine, honey. Just tired, that's all." I couldn't burden him, not yet. Not until I understood the full extent of Ethan's treachery. That night, as I lay in bed next to the man who had just vowed to dismantle my life, a plan began to take shape in my mind. Ethan thought he could discard me like an old toy, but I was not going to be a silent victim in his cruel game. The stakes were high, but I was ready to play. This was not just about me anymore, it was about Nathan, our future, and the justice we deserved. Ethan Bennett was about to learn that every action has its consequences, and I was going to be the one to teach him that lesson. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, was the unexpected ally in a house divided by secrets and lies. Despite her son's despicable nature, Eleanor's affection for me and Nathan had always been genuine. She was the first person I confided in about Ethan's betrayal. In the privacy of her quaint living room, with its floral curtains and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, I found the courage to speak. "Eleanor, Ethan is planning to leave me for another woman. He's been plotting this for a while." Her reaction was a mix of anger and sorrow. "That boy has always been selfish. But this, Alexandra, you and Nathan don't deserve this." Eleanor's empathy was a balm, but it was her next words that sparked a fire within me. "We need to protect you and Nathan. Ethan can't just get away with this." The conversation turned to action. We needed a plan, one that would expose Ethan's true colors and safeguard our future. It was a game of chess, and we were 2 moves away from checkmate. Meanwhile, Nathan's bond with his father was disintegrating. I overheard their conversation one evening, a dialogue laced with disappointment and unspoken accusations. "Why are you never home, Dad? You missed my soccer game again." Nathan's voice was a mix of hurt and accusation. Ethan's response was dismissive, his usual defense mechanism. "Business, Nathan. You'll understand when you're older. Priorities, son." But Nathan was older than his years. "Mom's always there. Are we not your priority, Dad?" The conversation ended with Ethan walking away, a cowardly retreat from a confrontation he couldn't win. Nathan's eyes, so much like his father's, yet filled with a depth Ethan never had, met mine. We didn't need words. Our resolve was unspoken. Eleanor and I continued to weave our web. We gathered evidence, bank statements, photographs, and messages. Every piece was a testament to Ethan's betrayal. Our plan was taking shape, a strategy not just for revenge, but for justice. As I tucked Nathan into bed that night, his innocent face asleep in the moonlit room, my resolve hardened. This was no longer just a battle. It was a war for our dignity, for our future. Ethan Bennett, in his arrogance, had underestimated the strength of the bonds he sought to break. He was about to learn that the ties of kinship were stronger than his web of lies. The morning I decided to confront Ethan was draped in an eerie silence. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, but nothing could prepare me for the reality of it. He was at the kitchen table, his back to me, engrossed in his phone. Without a word, I slid the envelope across the table. It contained the irrefutable evidence of his infidelity, pictures of him with Isabel, receipts from extravagant gifts, and damning messages. Ethan's reaction was a cocktail of shock, denial, and then, disgustingly, amusement. "You've been snooping around, Alexandra? Is this some sort of joke?" His attempt to downplay his betrayal only fueled my resolve. "This is no joke, Ethan. You've been planning to leave me for Isabel. I know everything." For a moment, Ethan's facade cracked, revealing the coward beneath. "Alexandra, let's be reasonable. We can sort this out." "Sort this out?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You want to abandon your family for your mistress, and you think we can sort this out?" The room was thick with tension, a tangible force that seemed to suffocate any remnants of love we once shared. Ethan's next words were the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. "Alexandra, you're overreacting. Isabel understands me in ways you never could. I need someone younger, more vibrant." His words were a slap in the face, a confirmation of every fear and insecurity I'd ever felt in our marriage. But they also ignited a fire within me, a fire of defiance and strength. "Vibrant?" I retorted, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Is that what you call betrayal these days?" It was clear then that there was no salvaging our marriage. Ethan had made his choice, and it was not me, not us. I left the room with a newfound determination. I would not be a victim of Ethan Bennett's selfish whims. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Meetings with lawyers, discussions with Eleanor, and late-night planning sessions. We were building a case, not just for divorce, but for justice. And then came the health scare, a routine checkup that turned into a series of tests, the results of which left me reeling. Possible breast cancer? The doctor had said, her voice a blend of professional detachment and sympathy. I was stunned, my mind a chaos of fear and uncertainty. But amidst the turmoil, a plan began to take shape. A plan that would expose Ethan's true nature once and for all. "We'll tell Ethan about the diagnosis," Eleanor suggested during one of our strategy meetings. "Let's see if there's any humanity left in him." It was a gamble, but one we were willing to take. Ethan's reaction to my potential illness would be the ultimate test of his character. It was a test I was almost certain he would fail. The day we decided to reveal my diagnosis to Ethan, the air in the house was thick with anticipation. Eleanor had come over, her presence a source of strength as I prepared to face my husband. Ethan returned home late, as usual, the smell of expensive cologne and deceit clinging to him. Eleanor and I sat in the living room, the envelope containing my medical reports on the coffee table. His eyes flickered with a blend of curiosity and irritation as he walked in. "Alexandra, what's this about?" "You said it was urgent." Ethan's voice held a note of impatience. I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Ethan, I went to the doctor last week. They suspect it might be breast cancer. The words hung in the air, heavy with the gravity of their implication. I watched Ethan closely, searching for a flicker of concern, of love. But what I saw was far more chilling. Breast cancer? That's unfortunate, Ethan said, his voice devoid of warmth. But what does this mean for us? Us. The word echoed mockingly in the room. There was no us, not anymore. Eleanor's gaze was piercing, her disappointment in her son palpable. It means, Ethan, that your wife needs you now more than ever. She needs your support. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between the envelope and the door. Right, of course. We'll figure this out. I need some air. And with that, he left, his retreat as cowardly as it was revealing. His reaction, or lack thereof, was all the confirmation we needed. Eleanor's hand found mine, her grip firm. We know what we have to do, Alexandra. The following weeks were a blur of activity. My condition worsened according to the narrative we fed Ethan. His visits were sporadic, brief, and devoid of any real concern. It was clear that his thoughts were elsewhere, with Isabel, with his escape plan. But Ethan wasn't the only one making plans. Eleanor and I, with the help of my lawyer, were meticulously crafting the trap that would strip Ethan of his power and reveal his true nature to the world. The climax of our plan came one evening when Ethan returned home to find his belongings packed in boxes, his precious possessions stripped from their usual places. What the hell is this, Alexandra? Ethan exploded, his composure finally cracking. It's over, Ethan, I said, my voice steady, despite the storm raging inside me. I know about Isabel, about your plans to leave me, and I won't be a silent bystander in your little drama anymore. Ethan's face was a canvas of rage and disbelief. You can't do this to me. I'm Ethan Bennett. You're nothing without me. But he was wrong. I was Alexandra Bennett, and I was more than he would ever understand. This was my retribution, my stand against the man who had vowed to love and protect me, but had chosen betrayal instead. As Ethan stormed out, his threats and curses echoing through the empty house, I felt a sense of liberation. The facade was gone, and the truth was laid bare. Eleanor stood by my side, her presence a testament to the strength of the bonds that Ethan had tried and failed to sever. You did well, Alexandra. Now let's see this through to the end. The day of reckoning had arrived. The morning air was crisp and charged with a sense of impending justice as Eleanor and I prepared for the final act of our plan against Ethan. I sat in the lawyer's office, my fingers nervously tapping on the polished mahogany desk. Today we were to confront Ethan with the divorce papers and the full extent of his financial betrayal. The evidence was laid out neatly in folders, each document a testament to his greed and deceit. Eleanor was a rock beside me, her resolve as firm as her disapproval of her son's actions. He won't see this coming, she whispered, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. The door opened, and Ethan walked in, his usual arrogance replaced with a hint of unease. He glanced at the documents, then at us, his expression one of wary confusion. What's this about, Alexandra? Why am I here? Ethan's voice was cautious, a far cry from his usual dismissive tone. I took a deep breath, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. This is about the end, Ethan, the end of our marriage and the end of your lies. Ethan's eyes widened as he flipped through the documents, bank statements, property deeds, evidence of his financial infidelities, all laid bare for him to see. This can't be happening, he muttered, his composure slipping. You can't do this to me. Eleanor leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. You did this to yourself, Ethan. You chose betrayal over your family. Now you face the consequences. The lawyer, a stern woman with an air of unyielding authority, began to outline the terms of the divorce, the division of assets, the alimony, the child support, each point a nail in the coffin of Ethan's grand plans. Ethan's protests grew more desperate, his pleas more pathetic. You can't leave me with nothing. I'm your husband, Alexandra. We can work this out. But it was too late for negotiations, too late for remorse. There's nothing left to work out, Ethan. You made your choice. Now, I'm making mine. The meeting ended with Ethan storming out, his threats of revenge and legal battles echoing hollowly in the office. But his words held no power over me anymore. I had seen the man behind the mask, and I was no longer afraid. As we left the lawyer's office, Eleanor's hand found mine, a silent show of solidarity and strength. "You're free, Alexandra. You and Nathan can start anew." And she was right. Despite the turmoil and pain, I felt a sense of liberation, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Ethan Bennett would learn that the price of betrayal was high, and I would be there to ensure he paid it in full. The house felt eerily quiet after Ethan's departure, the silence a stark contrast to the years of deceit and turmoil. But in that stillness, there was a sense of emerging victory. Nathan, now aware of the full extent of his father's betrayal, was a pillar of support. "Mom, we're better off without him," he said one evening as we sat in the living room, a space that once echoed with Ethan's false promises. I nodded, pride swelling in my heart for the young man my son had become. "Yes, Nathan, we are." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Ethan, stripped of his bravado, was a shadow of the man he once pretended to be. His once lavish lifestyle crumbled under the weight of the financial restrictions Eleanor and I had imposed. Then came the day of the final hearing. The courthouse was a monument to justice, its hallowed halls a fitting backdrop for Ethan's downfall. As we entered the courtroom, Ethan's eyes met mine, a mix of anger and desperation in his gaze. But I was no longer the woman he thought he could manipulate and control. The judge, a stern figure of authority, called the court to order. The proceedings were a blur, but each word from the judge was a strike against Ethan's fortress of lies. "You have not only failed in your duties as a husband and father, Mr. Bennett, but you have also squandered your family's resources for selfish gains," the judge said, his voice echoing through the room. Ethan's plea for leniency fell on deaf ears. The evidence of his infidelity and financial misconduct was overwhelming. The judge's verdict was swift and unyielding. "You are hereby ordered to pay substantial alimony and child support. Furthermore, your assets will be divided as per the agreed-upon terms." Ethan's face drained of color, his future as bleak as the judgment being passed. He had lost everything: his family, his reputation, and now his wealth. As we left the courtroom, Nathan's hand in mine, I felt a sense of closure. The legal battle was over, and justice had been served. Ethan's reign of deceit had come to an end, and with it, the chapter of our lives that he had tainted. We stepped out into the sunlight, the world seeming brighter, more hopeful. Nathan looked up at me, a smile on his face. "Mom, we did it. We're free." Yes, we were free. Free from Ethan's lies. Free from the shadows of the past. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. Ethan Bennett had learned the hard way that the wheels of justice, though they grind slowly, grind exceedingly fine. The days following the court's decision were a time of reflection and renewal. The house, once a battleground of secrets and lies, now resonated with the promise of a new beginning. Nathan and I spent our days planning for the future, a future unmarred by Ethan's shadow. One afternoon, as the golden light of the setting sun filled the living room, Nathan turned to me, his eyes thoughtful. "Mom, do you ever regret it? Marrying Dad, I mean." I paused, considering the weight of the question. "No, Nathan. Despite everything, I don't regret it. Your father gave me the greatest gift, you, and through all this, I've found a strength I never knew I had." Nathan nodded, understanding reflecting in his eyes. "I'm proud of you, Mom. You stood up to him, fought back." "It wasn't just for me, Nathan. It was for us, for our future," I said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. In the weeks that followed, news of Ethan's downfall spread. His reputation, once that of a successful businessman, was now tarnished beyond repair. But our focus was no longer on Ethan's fate. It was on rebuilding our lives. Eleanor remained a constant presence, her support unwavering. "You've both been so strong," she said one day as we shared a quiet lunch. "I'm sorry Ethan couldn't be the man you deserved, Alexandra." "Eleanor, you've been more than family to me," I replied, gratitude welling in my heart. "You and Harrison have shown us kindness and love more than I could have asked for." As the seasons changed, so did our lives. Nathan excelled in his studies, his resilience shining through, and I found solace in my work, my art, rediscovering passions I had long suppressed under Ethan's shadow. One evening, as Nathan and I sat on the porch watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, I felt a sense of peace. The pain of the past was fading, leaving behind lessons and newfound strength. "Mom, what's next for us?" Nathan asked, his voice filled with hope. "Whatever we want, Nathan. We have a whole world to explore, dreams to chase. We're free to live our lives on our terms," I said, my heart full of optimism. We sat there, mother and son, looking up at the vast expanse of the night sky, our hearts light with the promise of new beginnings. The darkness of the past was behind us, and ahead lay a path illuminated by the light of our courage and love. Ethan Bennett's shadow had been lifted, and in its place was the bright dawn of our new life, a life built on truth, strength, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her son. In the silent, shadowed halls of our home, the laughter of a woman not my own echoed, intertwining with the deep, familiar timbre of Michael's voice. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I stood, frozen, just steps from the bedroom door. My arms instinctively cradled our newborn daughter, a tiny being oblivious to the storm about to break. "Michael, you're choosing to spend time with me. Clearly, I'm far more exciting than Amelia. Plus, I don't do babies. They're just noisy and needy." The woman's voice dripped with contempt. My name, uttered so carelessly, jolted me from my daze. The audacity of this woman, mocking not just me but my child too, ignited a fire in my veins. I pushed the door open, revealing the sordid scene, my husband, Michael, and his mistress, entwined on what used to be our shared bed. The room spun as Michael's eyes met mine, his expression morphing from shock to a cold, calculated calm. "Amelia, why are you back already? Weren't you supposed to be discharged tomorrow?" I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "I messaged you, Michael. Or were you too preoccupied to notice?" My gaze fell on the woman beside him, her smug smile faltering under my stare. Michael stood, adjusting his shirt. "Look, there's no easy way to say this. I want a divorce. I've already filled out my part of the papers." He gestured nonchalantly to a stack of documents on the dresser. A profound silence filled the room, punctuated only by the soft cooing of my daughter in my arms. The walls of the room that once held laughter and love now bore witness to my life's cruel unraveling. I mustered all the strength left in my postpartum body and stood tall. "Is this what you really want, Michael? A life without your daughter and me?" His gaze was unwavering, cold. "Yes, it's for the best." Those words were the final blow, shattering the last vestiges of the life I thought we had. With tears streaming down my face, yet with a heart strangely solidified by resolve, I whispered, "Then this is goodbye, Michael. Forever." I turned away from the ruins of my marriage, my mind racing with plans and possibilities. I had lost the man I loved, but in his place, I found a fierce determination to protect my daughter and reclaim my life. As I stepped out into the cool night air, cradling my daughter close, a new path lay before us. One of resilience, independence, and, above all, a resolve for retribution. The soft glow of the morning sun did little to warm the chill that had settled in my heart. Sitting at the kitchen table in my parents' home, I cradled a steaming cup of coffee, lost in thought. My daughter, nestled in a bassinet beside me, was the only source of light in my newly darkened world. My mother, a pillar of strength with gentle eyes, joined me. "You don't have to go through this alone, Amelia. We're here for you every step of the way." I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "I know, Mom. It's just, how could he? How could Michael do this to us?" The betrayal stung anew with each passing moment. Michael, whom I had loved unconditionally, had discarded our family like a piece of unwanted furniture. The pain was deep, but beneath it, a fierce determination was taking root. My father, a stern yet caring man, spoke up. "We'll support you, Amelia. Whatever you need, we're here for you." Their unwavering support bolstered my resolve. I had to be strong, not just for my daughter, but for myself too. Michael had taken enough from me. I wouldn't let him take my spirit too. As days turned into weeks, I found a rhythm in my new life. My daughter's gurgles and smiles were my daily respite from the storm that raged within me. I threw myself into work, my career at the multinational firm offering a much-needed distraction. But beneath the surface of this newfound routine, a plan was simmering. Michael had wronged us, and I couldn't let that go unchallenged. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. I began to gather information, sifting through our financial records and scrutinizing Michael's recent behavior. The picture that emerged was one of deceit and manipulation. The more I uncovered, the stronger my resolve grew. Michael wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a man who had taken advantage of my trust and love for his gain. I spent my evenings after putting my daughter to bed, meticulously planning my next steps. With every piece of evidence I gathered, the outline of my strategy became clearer. I would confront Michael, but not as the broken-hearted wife he had left behind. I would face him as a woman empowered by the truth and unafraid to demand justice. As I laid out my plans, a sense of empowerment washed over me. I was no longer the naive girl who had fallen in love with Michael. I was a mother, a survivor, and soon I would be the architect of Michael's undoing. The soft hum of my laptop was the only sound in the room as I scrolled through the report from the private investigator. The pages were a damning testament to Michael's deceit. Photographs of him with various women, credit card statements for extravagant gifts and hotel stays. Each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin of our marriage, a marriage I now realized was built on lies. I heard a soft knock on the door. My mother peeked in, concern etched on her face. "Amelia, you've been in here for hours. Are you all right?" I looked up, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, Mom, just sorting through some things." She entered, sitting beside me. "You know, it's okay to feel angry, to feel hurt. You don't have to hide it, not from me." I sighed, a weight lifting as I shared the burden of my findings. "It's not just the cheating, Mom, it's everything, the lies, the manipulation. He's not the man I thought I married." My mother's hand found mine, her grip firm and reassuring. "You're strong, Amelia, stronger than you know, and you have us. We'll get through this together." With my family's support, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The time for mourning what could have been was over. Now, it was time for action. I contacted Michael, my voice steady as I confronted him over the phone. "We need to talk, Michael. About the divorce, the finances, everything." There was a pause before he answered, his voice oozing false concern. "Amelia, I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Let's meet and sort everything out." The day of our meeting, I walked into the cafe, every step fueled by a cocktail of determination and righteous anger. Michael sat there, the picture of casual arrogance. "Amelia, let's make this quick, okay? I have a busy day ahead," he said, barely glancing up from his phone. I sat down, my documents neatly stacked in front of me. "Let's start with the finances. I've been reviewing our accounts, and there are some discrepancies I'd like to discuss." Michael's eyes flicked to the papers, then back to me, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Discrepancies? What are you talking about?" I slid the photographs across the table, his secret life laid bare in glossy prints. "This is just the beginning, Michael. I know about the hotels, the gifts, the trips. I know everything." The color drained from his face as he realized the extent of my knowledge. "Amelia, listen, we can work this out. There's no need to make a scene." I leaned in, my voice low but unwavering. "This is not a negotiation, Michael. This is me taking back control. I will not be brushed or silenced. Not anymore." As I detailed my terms for the divorce, including fair financial settlements and custody arrangements, Michael's mask of confidence crumbled. For the first time, I saw him for what he truly was, a coward hiding behind a facade of charm and deceit. I left the cafe with a sense of triumph. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was no longer the victim in this story. I was the author, and this chapter was just the beginning of Michael's reckoning. The morning sun cast long shadows in the living room of my former home, now a battleground for the final confrontation. Michael stood there, his face a mask of faux composure. Beside him his mistress, a picture of uneasy defiance. My parents flanked me, their presence a silent testament to their unwavering support. My father's stern gaze bore into Michael, while my mother held my daughter, a protective shield against the toxic atmosphere. "Amelia, why drag this out? Let's just settle this and move on," Michael started, his voice tinged with irritation. I shook my head, my resolve steeling. "No, Michael. You don't get to dictate how this ends, not after everything you've done." He scoffed, a hollow laugh devoid of humor. "What do you want, then? Money? Is that what this is about?" I stepped forward, my voice steady. "This is about respect, something you clearly know nothing about. It's about acknowledging your actions and their consequences." His mistress piped up, her voice shrill. "Michael, let's just give her what she wants and get rid of her." My father's voice boomed across the room. "You will speak to my daughter with respect." She's here to settle matters rightfully. Michael glared at me, his veneer of control slipping. Fine, Amelia, what do you want? I laid out my terms, every demand a strike against his ego and his betrayal. I want full custody of our daughter. You will have supervised visits until I deem otherwise. As for our finances, I've detailed a fair division, considering your extracurricular activities. Michael's face reddened, a vein throbbing in his temple. You can't do this to me. I won't let you take everything. But before he could continue, the door burst open. In strode my in-laws, their faces a mix of shock and anger. Michael, what on earth is going on here? His father bellowed, his disappointment palpable. Michael turned, a deer caught in the headlights. Dad, it's not what it looks like. His mother, tears brimming in her eyes, looked at me. Amelia, we had no idea. We're so sorry. The tables had turned. Michael, once the manipulator, was now cornered by the truth. His parents' arrival was the final blow, stripping away any pretense of innocence. The negotiations were tense, but with the weight of my evidence and the support of my family, Michael had no choice but to agree to my terms. As we left, my father's arm around my shoulders, I felt a sense of closure. The chapter of my life tainted by Michael was ending, and a new chapter, one of hope and strength, was beginning. The soft rustle of leaves and the gentle chirping of birds formed a serene backdrop as I sat on the veranda of my new home overseas. My daughter played at my feet, her innocent laughter a balm to my once weary soul. The rolling hills and sprawling green fields of our new surroundings were a far cry from the stifling confines of my past life. My father, sitting beside me, handed me a cup of tea. You've done well, Amelia. I'm proud of you. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. Thanks, Dad. It wasn't easy, but I feel like I can finally breathe again. The journey here had been tumultuous. From the ashes of my marriage with Michael, I had risen, stronger and more determined. The divorce had been finalized, with the terms heavily in my favor, thanks to Michael's indiscretions and my unwavering resolve. But the sweetest victory was watching Michael's facade crumble under the weight of his actions. His mistress had left him once she realized the luxurious lifestyle he provided was no longer sustainable. His colleagues and friends, once drawn to his charismatic persona, now saw him for the fraud he was. I had heard through the grapevine that Michael was living a modest life now, his nights of extravagance a distant memory. The man who once held himself above others was now humbled by his own misdeeds. As I watched my daughter chase butterflies across the lawn, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight for justice, it had all led to this moment of tranquility. I'm thinking of starting a blog, I mused aloud. Maybe share my story, help others who might be going through similar struggles. My father nodded. That's a great idea. You have a lot of wisdom to share, Amelia. The sound of a car pulling up the driveway caught our attention. My mother emerged, her arms laden with groceries, her face breaking into a smile as she saw us. Looks like you two are having a deep conversation, she said, joining us on the veranda. Just reflecting on the past and planning for the future, I replied, standing up to help her with the bags. As we unpacked the groceries together, I felt a surge of gratitude for my family. They had been my rock through the storm, and now they were my companions in this new chapter of life. The ordeal with Michael was behind me, but it had taught me invaluable lessons. I had discovered my strength, the importance of family, and the power of resilience. Now, as I looked forward to the future, I was filled with hope. Hope for new beginnings, for growth, and for the endless possibilities that lay ahead for my daughter and me.